So wonder, the experience of wonder, awe, and mystery are some of the most beautiful experiences of faith that I know, and we represent those through our wonder box. So when we pull out our wonder box, we get to go, I wonder what's inside, and I wonder what meaning it could help us find. Do we have a volunteer who's willing to open up the wonder box? Maybe Sadie and Annalise, do you want to come over and open it up together? Sadie, maybe you could open it up and pull out what's inside and unwrap it, since it is your birthday after all. And then Annalise, maybe you could tell everyone what it is. What is it, Annalise?
So it's a mirror.
It's a mirror. Oh, how wonderful. A mirror. Thank you, girls. A mirror. Very convenient. Oh, sorry. This is about something meaningful. Do you know, this reminds me of a story that is so old it probably even predates mirrors. Isn't that interesting that a mirror could remind me of a story before mirrors began? It's a story that took place in this African village. It was a story of a young 7-year-old boy. He was the youngest of 5 brothers, and all of his brothers who were at least 16. And his father and his father's 3 brothers were all great warriors in their village. They would go on the hunts that would provide the gazelle and the antelope, the food that would feed not only their family, but the village. And the young little boy would be like, I'm so strong, and I could be a great warrior too. And they'd say, oh yes, we see that in you. But as a 7-year-old, he had another important task. And his important task was to go like the other 6 and 7 and 8 and 9-year-old boys to tend the goats out in the fields. And so the boy would be out there and he'd be watching the goats. And his goats were really well behaved, and so there wasn't much watching to do. And the boy began to get a little bored. And there were no clouds in the sky that day, and the birds weren't really flying by. And so the boy did the wonderful thing that boys do who are 7, is he began to use his imagination. And he began to imagine what it'd be like when he was 17 and 27 and would be able to go on the great hunts. And he thought, maybe I could do that. Maybe I'm actually ready for that. And so he said, I could throw far, because he knew his brothers would throw these great spears. And so he picked up this rock and he said, I bet I could hit that big boulder right over there. And he picked up his rock and he threw it, and it just kind of went plop. And he's like, oh, I can't even hit that rock. And he's like, oh, maybe I need something a little bit taller. So he saw a bush a little bit further back, and he said, I bet I could hit that bush. So he picks up another rock and he throws it, and plop. And he's like, oh, I can't do anything right. Why can't I do this? And he goes, you know, my brother could throw to that big tree over there. I really can't even do it. And I'm just so mad. And he picks up this rock and he throws it as hard as it can, and it does not hit that tree. Instead, it hits this goat a little bit before it with a loud crack, and the goat fell to the ground, and the boy was like, oh. And he thought, oh my God, did I just hurt that goat? I think that goat's dead. Oh my God, what did I just do? We save these goats, we raise them and just use them when we need them. Oh no. And to make matters worse, right when that goat fell to the ground, another boy from his village popped up, who had been guarding that goat, looked at him, and ran as fast as that boy could back to the village. Now, our little boy just stood there for a moment and said, "Oh my God, what do I do? How can I go and tell my parents I did this thing and I didn't even need to do it? Maybe I could go somewhere else," but he goes, "I don't even know where another village is. I haven't even been out of my village and I don't know how to get there and I can't take another goat and I don't have any water." And he goes, "And I just want my parents." So he starts trudging back to the village that he came from. And as he is getting back, he sees that the second little boy had been knocking on all of the doors of the village, not just his door or the other boy's door, but all the doors. And the boy began to tell people, "Psst, psst, psst, psst," and all the people of the village began to come out. And the boy trudged home going, "I can't believe we have a house on the other side of the village." And he gets to the center, and now all the people, the 100 or so people who live in his village, were gathered around. Tell me, what do you think the little boy was thinking at that moment? They were thinking that they were mad at him? Mm-hmm. How do you think the little boy was feeling? Maybe he was sad. Mm-hmm. What would you have been feeling, do you think? Shame, guilt. And what happened was this one grandmother stepped forward and she said, "I know this boy. This is the boy who helped me dig up all my yams last harvest season when there were too many for me to pull out of the ground." And another man stepped forward and he said, "This is the boy who helps me sharpen the spears so that way when we go on a hunt, we're all ready." And another mother stepped forward and she said, "This is the boy that I trust with my youngest child." And everyone who knew him in the village stepped forward and told him the stories of everything they knew that he did right. And in doing so, they held up a mirror to the boy, a mirror of the good person they knew him to be. And in that moment, the little boy understood that even though he had done something wrong, that who he was still something right. And that's what it means to reflect back the goodness that we see in every human being, what it means to offer empathy and understanding to one another. In that spirit, will you join me in singing our children out to their classes? The words are printed in your order of service.